to be able to survive wherever the seedling goes to. These seedlings did not meet our standards. What we had to do was to take a very painful step to uproot all the seeds which had already germinated from the bags. Very costly exercise. For each of these, they had already germinated. We had already grafted. You can see the grafting had taken place, but this had dried off, and therefore this is now the original stock. We may as well have gone ahead, chop this off, and then now regrafted. The problem is that the roots were already forming inside the bag. Now these roots were eventually going to overgrow the bag, and by so doing, would eventually have had a scion, or rather a seedling, with now already grown scions, and on the top you will see a very nice and happy scion, a grafted seedling. But inside, it'll be a mess. So we'll then sell a seedling to a farmer, looking very nice, but which will be stunted. So you put them in the farm, and you just wonder, why is it not growing? And we have sold that seedling, which we believe we will then have received payment from. So our business at CC Village Produce is not about seedlings. Our business at CC Village Produce is about a service. Where the seedling does not meet our standards, it has not delivered a service. We take the painful step of removing all of it and beginning afresh. This is the painful decisions we must make to be able to keep our word about making a standard. Now you are meeting here today as ambassadors and our key field staff. We want to explain to you that wherever the nurseries are and whenever we are growing seedlings, we are not going to compromise on standards. We'd better absorb the loss than pass over a substandard seedling to the farmer. So this here is evidence of what we're having to do. We already spend money in buying the seed. We already spend money in nurturing the root stock. We already spend money in grafting each of the scions. It costs us money. We pay them. We pay as per scion. We pay the grafters per every seedling that they are grafting. With all those expenses, we are saying, if what has been done does not meet the standard, we forgo it and we begin afresh. So when you look at what you have now here, these are seedlings that are ready for the farm, because each of these seedlings is then meeting a standard. If you look at them, all of them, they are all meeting a standard, and so they are all ready. We have about 2,000 seedlings here, which are now ready. This lot, and I don't know where the lot is, which are now ready for the farm. And this seedling you see here has already gone through this assessment from the very beginning. And so, I'm glad that Timo, who is the one who is responsible for all these seedlings, is here, and is a man who knows that he has given us a standard, and we must keep that standard. And as CC Village Produce, we have said we'll do that. So all these seedlings now you see here are ready. You can see that some of them are already flushing. You see the nice orange, fresh leaves that are coming in. Those fresh leaves are telling you that now these seedlings have settled down and they're ready for the farm. And so even among this also, if there's any seedling which we see has not been our standard, just in case in sorting out somebody has made a mistake and therefore has eventually given, we have put in here a grade which is not the right grade for the market, we will not plant it. We will put it back and nurture it afresh to bring it to a standard to eventually go to the farm. And that's why ambassadors, yourselves, and the field agents or field staff, I want to again tell you we should never give out any seedling to the farmer which does not meet our standard. And the seedling we give to the farmer is a seedling which is going with a promise that in another 3 years' time, that seedling will in fact be giving us fruit. And in another 5 years' time, this seedling will be giving us a minimum of 1,000 fruits per tree. And so we will, of course, from here now get to see what happens when the seedling leaves the nursery and going outside. You have all of you seen the water by the entrance. That, of course, is something to ensure that we have disinfected all our shoes and everything, so that we move into this space here in a protected environment to ensure that the seedlings are well protected. Of course, with time, we then have to take the seedlings to the field. And when you take them to the field, I will now show you what we must do with each seedling to then ensure that we are keeping to the promise. It is painful, both for us, it is going to be painful for the farmer, and for us to eventually get the result. Any question, any comment in terms of the nursery as we move out there? Anybody with a question? It's a key part of our work. What we are having to do is to regionalize our activities. And so we have various regions. Likuyani is a region, Kimilili is a region, Kaimos is a region, and so forth. So we're creating regions. And for all these regions, we want to establish a system. So quality control is a very key part of our work. So if you notice, when the work was done in Kimilili, Mama Sarah, we came back to Kimilili and we realized that some mistakes were being done. And we correct those mistakes, painful as it was, but now you realize that some of the seedlings are now just shooting now. And we had to get water when we identified the mistake which was there. We corrected the mistake and we moved on. And so even here also there are mistakes which we had to take care of. So quality control ambassadors is critical. When the quality control officer comes to your place, stations, please listen to that quality control expert, because it is going to be painful, but we must keep up to the controls. Now here, we learned a bad lesson, very painful lesson. And the painful lesson was that by the time the seedlings were getting ready, the scions were not ready in Central Province. So by the time we were getting the scions from Central Province, because we don't have scions in the entire region, some of the seeds had already matured. So we then had to realize that mistake. And so when you look at each of these, you realize that some of the times the roots, this is the main root that goes down. If this, the taproot is called, when that root goes down, and it's when you look at them, some of them are actually dry. And so when this root is dry, it means the entire seed is really a problem, because all these other ones are relying on that. So when you see something happening, you see that this may have shot up here. But because when you look at it on the behavior of the seedling, it's not behaving very well, it may as well be that main root is rotten and so forth. So you remove it and soon realize, oh, there's a problem here. So that is number one problem, was that the scions came in when the rootstock had already overmatured. Secondly, because we are having to transport scions from Central all the way here, we need to bring them in such speed so that by the time the scions are here, they are still alive. If you bring in the scions and the scions are not they're still, if they have already started rotting or wilting, they are wilting, then you have a problem. So what we have to do now is, today we have the scions which came in last night, which now you have it out there. To transport those scions from Nairobi, we have to put them on the rooftop so that they continue having breather and all that to bring them over there. So the scions you have now are fresh scions for grafting. But we will not use those scions tomorrow. Tonight, there will be another lot of scions coming to Likuyani again. And so every day, you'll scions coming over there. So that each day that we are grafting with newer scions. That was another lesson we learned from what we are doing here. So that now you realize the lot of scions which came were scions which are fresh. Now we realized the same problem also when we came to Kimilili the first time. Most of the seedlings in Kimilili have not done very well, because by the time we were coming to graft them, some of them had matured. And so now we are having to, that mistake, we are having to make sure that we correct them now. So the experts are going to be in Likuyani, and they'll not leave Likuyani until they have finished everything in Likuyani. And then they will now move to Kimilili, and no scion which has been transported to Likuyani would ever find its way to Kimilili. So Kimilili will have a fresh supply of scions again, which means that whatever goes to Kimilili is again fresh from the farm. This way, we are then able to take care of this, because the mistake took place, this happened, but then we have to make sure that we move on. The third problem is the problem of watering. It may as well be that after the grafting, the people here did not water them frequently. And so water is a very, very critical component of the development of the seedlings. So at the point at which they have been grafted, they require even more water than any other time. And so we may have had a problem also with that. When we noticed that there were problems with water, we actually created a dam, a whole dam. And we have two 10,000 liter tanks. We have two 5,000 liter tanks. We have a 40,000 liter tank underground. And so when this was happening, we did not have rain. And so the underground water which comes from the rain was not available. And so we had to then quickly make a dam to supply the water to the tanks. We in fact started buying water, which became again a big problem because the water was coming in at the whim of the driver. But now with the dam, we now have full supply of water. So those three problems must have caused this. And so we expect that in the next cycle, this will not be repeated. And similarly also, in both Likuyani and Kimilili, this will not repeat. Of course, Malaba, we have too much water. And for every nursery now, we will ensure that we have dealt with this problem and it does not repeat. So quality control is important. Any mistake we experience is not a deterrent. The mistake we get is a way forward because it tells us we should not repeat the same mistake in the next phase again. And so ambassadors and the field officers, please learn from every mistake we make. I am told that a mistake the first time is done is not a problem. But when you do repeat the same mistake second time over, then there's a problem. Yeah. You'll realize that inside here in this space here, we have some deposits. From this space to this space, when it rains, the water then carries this soil to this space. Then the water goes down deep, and therefore the water is available to the roots from deep within. So you'll never have any water around about the tree, because if the water comes around the tree, it will then cause root rot, and that will kill your plant. But as long as you allow the water to then be on the outside and the water to come below, then you're okay. If this water goes around the plant, then you have a problem because you don't capture the water so that the water can now go under to be stored along the ridge. There must be enough water storage around the ridge so that the water is now available to the plant. But if you don't allow to do that, the water will just be spilling over, and therefore you don't have enough water coming around the plant, and therefore be available and continue watering your plant when it rains. And so this is a very good example of why the ridge has to be there, and it has to be high enough so that when the water comes down here, it does not go over the ridge. The water comes in here, and now I'll get this soil and scoop it up again, and to allow that therefore that the water will never come over and override the ridge, and the water will not go around the ridge, because when it goes around the ridge, I don't get the benefit of having the water coming into the ridge, and therefore getting enough water in the reservoir within the ridge. Yeah. Let's move up a bit. Yeah. You'll realize that inside here in this space here, we have some deposits. From this space to this space, when it rains, the water then carries this soil to this space. Then the water goes down deep, and therefore the water is available to the roots from deep within. So you'll never have any water around about the tree, because if the water comes around the tree, it will then cause root rot, and that will kill your plant. But as long as you allow the water to then be on the outside and the water to come below, then you're okay. If this water goes around the plant, then you have a problem because you don't capture the water so that the water can now go under to be stored along the ridge. There must be enough water storage around the ridge so that the water is now available to the plant. But if you don't allow to do that, the water will just be spilling over, and therefore you don't have enough water coming around the plant, and therefore be available and continue watering your plant when it rains. And so this is a very good example of why the ridge has to be there, and it has to be high enough so that when the water comes down here, it does not go over the ridge. The water comes in here, and now I'll get this soil and scoop it up again, and to allow that therefore that the water will never come over and override the ridge, and the water will not go around the ridge, because when it goes around the ridge, I don't get the benefit of having the water coming into the ridge, and therefore getting enough water in the reservoir within the ridge. Yeah. Let's move up a bit. Soil. But because of the ridges, I control the water. It only comes from here to this place, and I control it. And then again, the water comes from there to the other ridge. I control it. This way, I am actually able to maintain the quality of my land, because the erosion is not as heavy as it would have been if the water was coming from up there and just flowing down, because we have so much rain here. Even in areas where you don't have as much rain, one time that rain comes, inanyesha kunyesha, it comes down big time. At the end of the day, the damage it causes on that one day of rain is too much damage. And that's why the ridges will help you manage that farm on that worst day when it comes down raining too much. And so this is a good example of why the ridges are supportive. Now these onions we planted some time back, and they did so well on all this, wherever you see there, were all onions. We sold so many onions. Now today, whatever onions I'm planting, I'm just getting from here again. You know, all this is so much now onions now, which I'm able to expand and now put in the entire farm. Now, when you as ambassadors encourage your farmers to plant onions, in fact, all these ought to have been gapped. They ought to have been gapped so that you have onions close by. And now I already have enough stock here that I can just gap. But my systems are not as effective, and therefore I must go back to my system and ask my system what's happening, because they're not doing as well. Now you'll see maybe the other ones are more orderly than these ones, but I can tell you when these onions are here, no insects would attack my avocados, because you can almost smell the smell of the onions, and the insects don't like that smell. So the onions are helping me.
And the nematodes.
Yeah, oh, is it so?
In the soil.
Yes.
It's more important than the insects.
Seriously, yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what you want to avoid.
Now you can hear that from an expert. So, ladies and gentlemen, what you see here forming on this land is, or these onions, is by far of so much benefit than leaving it and then trying to weed. Because see, the fact that I have these onions here is encouraging my staff to weed, to remove the weeds. Now, if you compare this and the one down there, where I said was a mistake, down there we have weeds, but here where the onions are, they're weeding. Now, what happens? The same farm. It means, therefore, that when I planted the onions, my people developed a discipline to weed. Even myself, when I come here and I see that onions are not being weeded, I raise some noise. So it means even by myself also, I get some discipline also in ensuring that the farmers, actually my staff, are weeding my farm. Now, if I have weeds here, those weeds are just eating my soil. And then those weeds are inviting insects. And then, like also Bonacadima is saying, the nematodes are all over the place. But these onions now are assisting me. If I want to cook, I want to sell some, I just come here, pick them and I sell them. Now, this farm, for 3 years or 2.5 years, while I'm waiting for the fruit, this farm is feeding me. I don't have to worry about even the stuff.
In fact, now that you think about it, we say,
yeah,
I would advocate that we plant.
When you're pruning again, we will have a way of pruning some of the branches which may be crowding here to allow light again to come in the middle. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the trees require light to then be able to form flowers. Without enough light, there will be no flowers. Without flowers, there will be no fruit. And so you must work with the farmers. When you come in and you're cutting off the branches, the farmer may wonder, hey, wewe unatoa your branches zangu na hizo nitakana zinipe flowers. No, you are doing that for a reason as an ambassador. And all the staff we have are going to go through periodic training. We had a training here, and we want to have a training in all the centers where we are at. We are going to go there and train the people how to do things, so that you don't have to be there. The farm managers in the farms know exactly what to do, and they do it at the right time. And so when any farmer really wants CC Village Produce to come to the farm and help them, we will advise you on how to request for that help. Because now with the center coming up in Malava, and hopefully within the next week we'll be finished, and the week after that our staff will be in offices, and we have enough systems. Whenever any farmer needs support, you'll give a call and the people will come there. The ambassadors are the most powerful people in the entire system, because the ambassador has the power to summon any staff, and the staff must go there. That's the power as team leader I'm giving you. I'm saying when anything happens in your regions and you want any staff, technical staff to come over, the staff must come. If the staff does not come, you tell me and I'll deal with it. So you are responsible, fully responsible for your regions, to ensure that the trees now, when you come there next so many days, this is what we see, not that. And so you must also now wish to make sure that this is what you are developing in your regions. Because once this happens, the amount of produce that comes from your regions will be so much. And for me, what I want to do is, as I did in the team, is what I'm doing here and putting up a crude extractor. In your regions, I want to put a crude extractors also. And it will not depend on how much fruit you're giving. Kule chini, inateremka kule chini. So the amount of soil every time I was losing soil going out there. Sasa, unaona hiyo soil ikienda inatoa rutuba yote, inateremka nayo chini. So now, as soon as we planted, we saw some change. In fact, hapa mchanga ilikuwa hapa so bad, ilikuwa unaweza toa mchanga na ujengee nyumba. Imagine, it was that bad. Lakini sasa naona mchanga yenyewe imeanza kubadilika tena. In fact, wakati tulianza hii project, nikauliza wataalamu, sasa hii mchanga sasa nitapanda kweli? Wakasema by the way, hiyo mchanga ambayo iko na mawe ndio mzuri zaidi. Kwa sababu the rooting inaingia ndani sawa sawa. So when you go over to your neighborhood, to your farmers, alafu ama kuambia mchanga iko na mawe, please msimwambie, msimdiscourage kwamba asipande. Wacha apande. Unaona sasa hii, unaona vile inakaa kule smart. Hata nyingine iko tu hapa, lakini mtaona itaanza unaona zingine zimeanza kuflash kwa sababu mchanga ni sawa sawa. So hizo zote mtaona sasa kama zile zingine za juu ziko sawa sawa, zina flash. So kama ambassadors mkienda huko, mtu aseme mambo ya mawe, don't worry about it. It will be as good as this. Eventually hii mawe yenyewe itaanza kudisappear because hii mchanga napata hapa na mwaga juu. Hii mchanga napata hapa na mwaga juu. Na tukifanya hivyo, sasa hiyo mchanga ya hapo juu sasa itaanza kuwa sawa sawa. Alafu haiwezi kuwa na shida. So hiyo ndio nataka nifanye kwa hii shamba, ili kwamba sasa mchanga ya huku juu itaonekana kama mchanga ya chini.